Hey there YouTube, AJ here, and I'm back. You may be wondering why I haven't let out a video in quite some time. I think it's been 2 or 3 months at least, but we'll get into all that later after we start working. I'll explain what's been going on in my life. Let's just say 2024 got off to a bad start for me, but I'm back now and starting to work back on my car again and skateboarding and all that fun stuff. And yeah. So let me catch you up on what's been going on, because I have been kind of piddling around with the car a little bit here and there when I could. But yeah, let me catch you up first, then we'll start working and I'll explain what happened. Okay, first things first. I think I did it in my last video, but I sat the body back onto, or at least the front half of the body back onto the frame. But since then, since this leg was a factory leg and all the holes matched up, I bolted this leg onto the subframe. I did have to re-drill this hole because this is the one I had to put the new tab on back here so it didn't have a hole. So I drilled that hole out and bolted it as well. So this side is correct. Then, since that leg down there I made from scratch, I had to try to get the body more in the correct position before I could do that one. So what I did was I put my doors back on, minus these panels here because I wanted access back here, but put the doors on both sides and tried to get these to fit up pretty good. Now this side over here, this gap is a little on the big side and this gap is really tight. And when I first got this door on here, this door edge was like a ½ inch above this frame here, so something wasn't lining up right at all. This side's lined up pretty good, gap's pretty good here and pretty good here, and this door is latching fairly well, so we're happy with this one, at least for now. I took and clamped these two sections of the subframe back together so they're roughly in position. Same thing on this side. Then while I was trying to figure out why this gap was so high and off here, the door was like a ½ inch above, I got in here and I just happened to lean back against the rear part of the shell, and this all twisted and that popped into shape and popped into where it was the right height. So going forward, looking at my rear panel, it's all oil canned out. It's got a crease down through here. It's got a bullet hole in it. This top edge is all bent out of shape. It looked like there's a repair piece here. So I'm going to need to fix this back half before all of this is done. So I got to get this into shape, and that way I can get these doors lined up. I think in the end, I either have to somehow get this front edge moved forward a little bit, but it's really not too far off. It might be okay, but I definitely need to open this width here up. This needs to be at least an 1/8 inch gap here, maybe just like 3/16 would probably be better in order for this to latch correctly. So that's something we got to work on. So once I got that all in position, I got it close enough in shape where I can go ahead and position my cowl and drill the bottom leg I made on the outside. I came in here from the inside where the holes were in the subframe and was able to drill through and get my holes to mount this leg in place. And that's what we have here now. When I go to fit this panel, I will still need to do some hammer work on this leg to get it to fit right for my panel. But we can do that once this is in place. Now the next thing to do, take these bolts out one by one and replace them with rivets. And same thing on the other side, I got to rivet those in place. And on the cowl, I have 2 bolts here and here that also need to be replaced with rivets. These are the underneath the cowl braces that are in place there. So I want to rivet those in place. And then I have stuck all these other rivets just in the holes that also need riveted. And then finally, when I'm in the riveting mode here, I need to go ahead and rivet this hood rod bracket and this hood rod bracket into place. So I got a lot of riveting to do, and I've never riveted before. and these are steel rivets, not pop rivets. These are all long, so I will have to cut them to the proper length before I actually do the riveting. So yesterday I went and bought a new air hammer to replace the one I used to have, and that's a whole long story in itself, but we won't get into that. Anyway, so I got the new air hammer, but I don't have what they call a bucking tool. So the air hammer will hammer on the head of the rivet, and then I have to have a tool to go against the other side of the rivet. So when the air hammer smashes against this, the tool will smash the rivet down and expand the rivet in the hole itself, and the end that's sticking out will get flattened and expanded, which will hold the panels together. So that's what we're going to do now. So stay tuned, it'll be riveting. Alright, so I'm going to be making my bucking tool out of this piece of, I don't know, it's thicker than 1/2 inch, might be 9/16, I'm not sure. Anyways, it's a thick piece of steel. Basically, the bucking tool is just a heavy chunk of steel with a divot in it that allows you to hold it against the rivet and resist the impact of the air hammer, so it will smash the rivet. Thinking about 1.5 inches wide. Alright, so this is going to take a while to cut, so I won't bore you with that. But where have I been? Why have I not been making videos? Well, truth is, back in December, today's the middle of April, and back in December, I fell and hurt myself skateboarding, hurt my shoulder, and then, well, I guess that actually happened. The first fall happened in November at the end, and then like 7 to 10 days later, I was skating a mini ramp and I fell the same awkward way again, and like landed weird on my arm, and it jammed up my shoulder, and I'm pretty sure it tore my rotator cuff. So couldn't skateboard. I was having a lot of pain moving, limited mobility in my arm, a lot of pain in my arm. So working was hard. Working on the car was hard. You know, I could do my regular job because, you know, I just have to be able to type and do stuff like that. So that was no big deal. But anyway, it definitely slowed me down on what I could lift and do out here in the garage. So on top of that, in January, I got a sinus infection, got really sick. So I couldn't, like, I had no energy to do anything. It just got worse and worse, couldn't get rid of it. I was on antibiotics a couple times. I'm actually on antibiotics again right now. And I finally think I've got it kicked. Today's my last day of antibiotics, so I think I'm good on the sinus infection again. I've actually finally started getting some energy again. And then, on top of that, I was out working on the car one day, and I got, I sliced my hand with some sheet metal and had to go get stitches. And while I was there, my blood pressure was crazy high, like something I've never had before. And they basically, I was in what they said hypertensive crisis, I think, where I was at risk of having a heart attack or stroke, which is all weird. So my blood pressure got all out of whack, and that was also part of what was causing me to be completely lethargic. I was just exhausted all the time. So I'm on blood pressure medicines now while we're trying to figure that out. I got my blood pressure back to normal, and but not without medicine. So we're working on figuring all that out. And then, you know, while I was getting all these medicines in me and everything, I was like always tired and nauseous, and like always having reactions. Like I just didn't feel like doing anything, skating. Plus I was afraid to fall on my shoulder again. I was supposed to have a CAT scan on my shoulder yesterday. I got there and they said that's not going to do anything, so I got to get my insurance company to approve an MRI now. My shoulder is a lot better, but it's still, I got limited mobility. I can only go back so far. Like this arm, I can go clear back here. That's about as far as I can go now without hurting. So, and it's not up to full strength. I can't do my normal workouts and stuff. So that's the last thing I got to get figured out. Everything else seems to be going good. But yeah, That's why I haven't been working on my hot rod or skating or doing anything or putting out any videos. I've just, between all the illness and injuries, and on top of that, I've had to travel back and forth to Ohio. We have had family members in the hospital. It's just been a really crappy start to 2024. So, hey, let's hope it gets better. At least I'm out working again. I got a beautiful sunny day. Okay, let's make this bucking tool and I'll explain my logic behind what I'm doing. Alright, so now what I want to do is kind of cut these corners. So I just have like a piece in the center here. That'll give me more. I don't want this long flat part to try to, where I need to try to get into where my rivet heads are. So I want to narrow the bottom end of this down some, plus it'll concentrate the force onto the center here. Okay, so we have a basic. Alright, so I have my basic bucking bar here. I still need to put a little divot in the end here. And in order to make this a little heavier and easier to hold, I think I want to put some kind of handle on the top here, some kind of crossbar. What I got here is a chunk of rebar. And I think I'm just going to cut off a piece big enough for the width of my hand. Give myself something to push and hold on to, and we'll just weld that to the top of it after we clean this all up. Okay, this thing is lava hot, but I have my handle crudely welded on. Rebar doesn't always want to weld well, so you know, it is what it is. But got that T crudely welded on so I can use it to hold once this is cool. The last thing, what I got to do now is take and put a little divot right here in the top. So I think what I'm going to try to do is center punch it, maybe take a drill bit and drill in a little ways, and then kind of smooth that out with my die grinder. We'll see if that works. So what I think I'm going to do is just drill in just a little ways with a drill bit, just a little bit smaller, one size smaller than the head here. Hopefully that plan will work. If it doesn't work, I can always cut this off and reshape it again. So the shank does go down in there. I think I want it just a little deeper. Alright, I'm going to go with that. So this is what we're looking at. And that'll be going over that to mushroom it out. So hopefully that'll work. Alright, now I got one more thing I want to do. This is, I believe, heat treated on a real bucking bar. So I think what I'm going to try to do is do my own hillbilly heat treatment here. Basically heat this up till it's red, quench it in oil, and hoping that hardens this a little bit. Maybe do it twice, I don't know. I don't really know anything about heat treating. I mean, I know how it works. I've never actually heat treated anything myself. Watched it a lot on Forged in Fire. But you know, hey, let's give it a shot. So I've got some nasty, dirty Marvel Mystery Oil down here in the pan. supposed to test it with a file. Just see if it skates across it, I guess. That's biting in. Well, it's skating there. So these skinnier edges, it's skating across this, but it's biting in on this side. So I'm wondering. I think I'm going to go through it one more time just for, try it out again. Alright, here we go. I guess we'll let that all cool down, and we'll see if we have a bucking bar or not. Okay, so next I need to cut my rivets to the correct length, because the rivets I bought were 1 inch long, which are too long. So the length of the rivet should be the thickness of the material you're going through, plus 1.5 times the diameter of the rivet shank. And this rivet shank is 3/16, so I need to be what, 4.5/16 past the thickness of the material. So far I've got 2 different lengths of rivets I need, and I made up 2 jigs, basically. Piece of wood, right thickness to cut it. Had to wrap a little bit of tape around it to get it to the right length. But then I drilled 5 holes in here of 3/16 diameter, and then the same thing on this one, which is a thinner piece of wood for shorter rivets, and 5 holes. That way I can cut 5 rivets at a time, so to get through them a little quicker. Now the rivets that are going to be replacing the bolts that are in the bottom of the front legs, those I don't know the thickness of yet, so I can't cut those yet, but everything else I'm going to go ahead and cut. And then once I get everything riveted to that point, I will take out one of the bolts and measure the thickness I need there, and hopefully it's going to be one of these, so I don't have to make another template, but I'll cut those when I get there. Anyway, let's go ahead, and all I got to do now is take my angle grinder and cut flush to the bottom side of here, and all these rivets will be the right length I need. Once I pull these out and they cool a little bit, I'll file off the rough edges. Sometimes they're hard to get out. Come on, there we go. Alright, so now we have rivets the correct length versus the original length, and I only have to do that like, what, 35 more times. I suppose it would be smart to do a test piece first. So for once, I'm actually going to do the smart thing. I have a rivet in here through this old section of cowl and this old section of firewall, and we're going to see how it goes. We're going to see if my bucking tool and this will get it done. Running, but it did start to turn it over, so maybe I just need to go at it longer than I thought. But we're also going to add some ear protection to the situation, because my left ear's kind of buzzing after that. Okay, that's getting there. See, it did peen over the shaft, and then out here kind of shaped that a little bit, but yeah, all in all it did it, so it will rivet it together. Okay, well, I guess it's time to try one for real. I'm going to start with the ones through the brace, work those two first, and then work my way out around, and then I'll do these last. Ear protection, eye protection, or vice versa. Okay, that worked. Okay. Those first two seem to work really well, so I think we're going to be good. I got the welding blanket on here just to kind of deaden the sound. Let me bring you inside here, see if you can see it from the inside. I'm going to be working on that one right there, so hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, well, it is, oops, there went my air hammer. Anyway, it is all nice and sturdy now. I do have a couple of places I need to fix. Some of the rivet heads I need to clean up, make them look a little better because they got chewed up. Slipped a couple of places, mainly over here on this side where I chewed up the cowl band a little bit. So I got a couple of things I need to touch up, but other than that, yeah, we're looking pretty good so far. So next step is we take out one of the bolts in the bottom, measure for rivet length, and then start riveting this leg first and that leg last, because that one is going to be the trickiest because it's got the most spring in it. So I want to take out one bolt at a time. I'll start in the center of each of these legs, take out the centermost bolt, rivet that, and then work my way out from the center. And hopefully I'll be able to keep those riveted nice and tight. But so far so good. It's working. My DIY bucking tool is doing the job. One other thing I did do to this, I did it off camera, but in this end of this handle, I put another divot here that I could hold sideways and rivet into that, buck into that, rivet into that, whatever it's called. Mainly because when I went to check the size, this could get into every place. This one could get into every place except for one bolt on each leg. So I had to come up with a shorter alternative. So in order to rivet these in on the legs, the first thing I need to do is to find out how long of a rivet I actually need. So we're going to remove this bolt, which I'm hoping is the least likely to separate when I undo this one, because the other one should be holding it tight still. So doesn't look like it's separated at all. That's good. All right, so now we're going to take a rivet. That's too long. Take our marker. So now we got our thickness. That's the not marked area there beneath the head and that black line. And we just need to add a, what is it, 4.5/16 to that line to get our overall length. So I need this head, the shank under the head, to be 3/8 inch long. But I'm gonna go cut all those rivets up, and I'm not gonna make you watch that. I'll be back in a second. Okay, before I start on the leg down there, I'm gonna I got to tighten this one up. It was a little loose yet. It wasn't quite peened over, so I want to redo this one. And then there's one over here that was bent that I decided to just go ahead and replace. So I drilled it out, and now I'm gonna do those two, and then I'll start on the leg down there. Before I do that, let's move my rivets because they will just bounce all over the place if I start this. Ah! Would help if I turn on the air. All right, let's try that again. Much better. All right, now we'll start down here. This is gonna be tricky maybe. Well, those went great, the ones on top. This one went good. These two went good. This one I think is okay. I might have to touch this one up. This one went good down here. This one went horribly wrong. I don't know if you can see it, but basically I screwed up, didn't get it on there the first time, and I ended up driving the head almost completely through. Well, yeah, almost completely through the outer sheet metal. So I'm probably going to have to do some damage control here. I might need to weld this up, re-drill it, and then rivet it. So that's great, huh? Okay, ready to re-rivet that one. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but I was getting ready to do the other side, and I noticed that this bracket didn't look square to this one. It's actually, this corner is about 1/8 of an inch too low. I know that doesn't sound like much, but I will see that every time I walk up to the car. I can't live with that. That'll drive me bonkers. So I have to now take, it's level there, but the bottom of the level's not touching here. So I basically have to take this and shift it over a little bit. So I gotta drill out these 3 rivets, take this off, weld up these 2 holes, remark them, re-drill them, and then re-rivet the whole thing. Fun stuff. Okay, got these level again, welded that up, re-drilled it, re-riveted it. I'm back where I started. Anyway, on to getting this last rivet in over here, and then those 5 over there. I wish I could say that was fun. The truth is, man, this side down here for some reason really kicked my butt. I kept dropping rivets wouldn't form correctly, they kept bending over instead of smashing, and I had to cut more rivets and weld up a hole and drill it. So just a lot of fun stuff, but it's done. I will say positive outcome because, let's see, I learned a new skill. I made a new tool, made my own bucking bar to do it with. Worked pretty good. Actually works as a little hammer, small area bucking tool, and bigger area bucking tool. All in all, it worked well, and it performed better than I thought it was going to be. So I'm happy with that. The cowl itself, wow. It is so much more sturdy now, and it's not even welded in back here yet on the A-pillars. So it's getting there. So I think next thing I got to do is weld these A-pillars in, and then start worrying about getting these doors to fit right in this back half square and solid. And that way, because in there I think I'm gonna have to cut these tack welds that are holding the subframe together. And I think I'm gonna have to cut those to adjust my door gaps. I think that's the only way I'm gonna be able to do it. Thanks for coming back and watching. If you watched before, if you're new, consider subscribing, please. It really helps the channel out. And until next time, when we go to weld these A-pillars in and start working on the rest of this front half of the car. Later, YouTube.